The lake is so still at dusk that every cloud lies twice upon the world. Mairi waits beneath the second sky. She has no lungs there, not in any way that matters. No pulse to count the dark between evenings. No skin, except when the water remembers she once had skin and troubles itself into the shape of her hands. She exists where light strikes the surface and turns back, in the underplace, in the long, cold mercy of reflection. Above her, the real shore holds its breath. Heather bends in the windless hour. The black hills keep their backs turned to the last gold of the sun. The crofter's cabin stands with one chimney stone missing, just as it has stood through storm, thaw, neglect, repair, and the slow return of one man who has never understood that he is not alone. His boots touch the shingle. Mairi feels the sound through water before she sees him. A low pressure, a familiar break in the shore's old rhythm. Not the fox that drinks at midnight, light-footed and nervous. Not the stag that lowers its antlers to the lake and startles at its own crown. This tread is heavier now than it was when he first came here with muddy knees, and a boy's bright anger at being told not to throw stones too far. Duncan Baird kneels at the edge of the lake. The years have changed the way he lowers himself. He does it carefully, one hand braced on his thigh, the other resting in the cold stones, as if the earth might shift without warning. Rain has darkened his coat at the shoulders. Wind has pulled threads of gray into the brown at his temples. Grief has made him leaner than last summer. Still, his hands are the same. Mairi knows the small scar on the knuckle he split at 12, striking the boathouse door because his father would not let him row in a squall. She knows the steadiness with which those hands held his wife's shawl. At 20, when he brought her here and laughed too softly because joy frightened him. She knows the way they shook last year, the first summer he returned alone, when he stood ankle-deep in the water and said nothing for an hour. Now he reaches into the shallows. Cold opens around his fingers. The lake shivers. Mairi shivers with it. His hand closes around the flat black stone that has slept beneath the surface since before he was born. No one has touched that stone for 100 years. The whole lake draws tight. Mary's own hand rises before she chooses to move. It passes through weeds, through light, through the thin silver skin that separates watching from being. The water breaks around her wrist. Air strikes her. Pain, not sharp, not cruel, too large for sharpness. It pours over her with the first breath she has taken in a century, burning her throat, filling her chest, dragging a sound out of her that is almost a sob and almost a laugh. Her fingers close over Duncan's around the stone. Warmth. His warmth is worse than the air. Duncan jerks back, but he does not let go. The water opens. Mairi steps out of her own reflection. For one breath, the lake holds her twice. The woman climbing from it in a soaked white shift, hair streaming black water down her back, and the pale face beneath the surface, watching with terrified eyes. Then the second face breaks apart into ripples. Shingle bites the soles of her feet. Gravity takes her with both hands. She sways. Duncan catches her. His palm lands at her elbow, rough and hot through wet linen, and the place where he touches her becomes the only true part of the world. Air scrapes in and out of her chest. She looks up. He is not the boy. He has not been the boy for a long, long time. This man has lived. The lines beside his mouth were made by speaking and not speaking. His eyes have known rooms where someone beloved no longer answered. "Who are you?" he says. His voice moves through air instead of water. It is lower than she imagined, less softened by distance. It enters her body and stays there. Mairi tries to answer. The first sound tears. She folds one hand around her throat. Duncan's grip changes. Not tighter, ready. The lake licks her ankles. A cold loop closes above the bone. Mairi looks down. Water has climbed the shingle without wind, without wave, thin as a hand sliding under a door. She pulls one foot back. The water follows. Duncan sees it. His fingers flex once against her elbow. Mairi forces breath into words. "Do not let it touch both feet." Objection moves across his face, sharp and unbelieving, then fails. The water creeps another inch. Duncan takes off his coat. The movement is so human, so ordinary that something in her almost breaks. He wraps the heavy wool around her shoulders. It smells of rain, peat smoke, and the clean bitterness of heather crushed underfoot. The warmth trapped inside it closes around her like an answer to a question she never learned how to ask. "Can you walk?" he asks. Mairi nods before she knows whether it is true. The first step hurts. The second hurts more. The world is made of edges, stones, air, wool, his hand hovering near her back without touching. Behind them, the lake gathers itself into a narrow, gleaming tongue and slips after her up the shore. Duncan sees that, too. His mouth hardens. "This way." The cabin door sticks before it opens. It has always stuck. Mairi has watched him shoulder it every summer, watched him curse it under his breath, watched his wife laugh and tell him the door only wanted manners. Tonight he lifts the latch first, pushes with care, and the door gives, like it remembers. Warmth meets her from inside, not much. Ash banked in the hearth, old wood holding the day's faint heat, a wool blanket folded over the chair by the fire. To Mairi, it is a blaze. She stops at the threshold. The cabin has lived under her eyes for 20 summers of Duncan's life and uncounted seasons without him. She knows the table's scarred top, the blue cup with the chip in the rim, the narrow bed behind the curtain, the iron hook where his father hung wet coats. Knowing is not touching. The floorboards hold under her bare feet. Damp wool presses the back of her neck. Smoke stings her nose. Every object is louder than thunder because it is real. Duncan closes the door. A line of water seeps under it and stops at the threshold, trembling there as if it has been forbidden entry by something older than the curse itself. Duncan looks from the water to her. "What are you?" Mary's hand tightens around the stone. It rests in her palm, black and smooth, warming as if it has stolen heat from him. On its surface, her face looks up. Not the face she saw in the lake, not exactly. A narrow face, wet lashes, lips gone pale from shock. Human enough to frighten her. "A thing that watched," she says. His eyes return to hers. The words are too small for a century. They sit between them, poor and bare. Duncan moves to the hearth. He kneels, feeds kindling into the ash, strikes flint until a spark takes. The first flame is thin and blue at the root. Mairi feels it along her shins. Heat gathers in the room by degrees, and every degree enters her like permission. No one speaks while the fire grows. A kettle waits, blackened, on the hook. Duncan fills it from a covered pail, hangs it over the flame, and only then looks at her again. His gaze does not travel down her body. It stays on her face, then her bare feet, then the coat swallowing her shoulders. "I have boots," he says. "They'll be too large." Mairi does not know what to do with kindness that makes no claim. She steps farther into the room. The window shows night thickening over the shore. The glass catches the fire, the chair, the bend of Duncan's back. As he reaches for the cup, it catches everything except her. Mairi freezes. Duncan follows her stare. In the dark window, the room has made space where she should be. His face changes then. Not fear, though fear is there. Recognition, slow and unwilling, pulls something open in him. "I knew," he says. The kettle begins its small, iron complaint over the fire. Mairi turns from the empty glass. "No, I knew something was here. That is not the same. No." He sets the cup down, too carefully. It isn't. Rain begins, soft at first, stitching the roof with cold fingers. "Long enough to know your father's cough," she says. His breath stops. "Long enough to know you came here last summer, because grief had nowhere else to sit." Duncan looks away. The cup in his hand has begun to steam. He does not drink. The rain thickens. Water moves outside the cabin in a dark, unnatural ring, filling the yard where no stream has ever run. Duncan crosses to the door and opens it. Rain leans in, cold and fine. Beyond the threshold, black water glistens between stones where no water has ever lain at this hour. It has crossed the yard in threads and shallow fingers, surrounding the cabin without touching its walls. Duncan closes the door. For a moment, he rests his hand against the wood. When he turns, the steadiness in him has become a decision. "There's a boathouse, higher ground." "I know. Of course you do." He says it without cruelty. That almost undoes her. Duncan takes a lantern from the peg, lights it, and gives her the boots he promised. They are too large, stiff with disuse, smelling of leather and old damp. He kneels to loosen the laces, then pauses. The pause asks. Mairi nods. His hand closes around her ankle. No reflection could have prepared her for the shock of being held with such practical care. His thumb braces the bone. His fingers do nothing but guide her foot into the boot, and still her breath turns unsteady. The laces drag through eyelets. He ties the knot and does not look up until both boots are done. They leave by the back door. Rain enters the coat at once. The yard has become a maze of black threads, water slipping through heather, over stone, between tufts of grass. The lantern paints each strand gold. Duncan walks first, testing the ground. Mairi follows, boots heavy, coat heavier, the stone hot in her fist. Once, Rabain has and her foot slips. Duncan catches her at the waist. His hand spans wool, not skin. Her body does not know the difference. He lets go as soon as she is steady. They reach the boathouse with water behind them and rain all around. Duncan lifts the bar. The door groans inward. The smell inside is wet wood, rope, old oil, and the mineral breath of stones that have never seen sun. Oars hang on the walls like narrow bones. A small boat rests belly up on trestles, its green paint blistered, its keel scarred by use. Mairi steps inside and remembers watching him there. At 12, soaked and furious, daring the storm to make him afraid. At 20, laughing as his wife tried to lift an oar taller than herself. At 37, last summer, standing in the open feuille with a bottle in one hand and no words at all. Duncan sets the lantern on a crate. Light trembles across the walls. Shadows row without boats. The rain becomes louder under the boathouse roof. It shuts the world down to a room, a lake, and the space between two people who should not be there together. "You said both feet," he says, "at the shore. The lake can call me back if it covers both. And if it doesn't?" She opens her palm. The obsidian stone shines under lantern light. Her reflection lies inside it, small and dark-eyed, a woman trapped in a hand's breadth of night. "I have until sunrise." Duncan does not ask what happens then. Mairi wishes he would. She wishes he would make her put the truth into words so she could be angry at him for needing them. Instead, he says, "And then you go back." The stone grows warmer. "If I choose to." Rain hammers the roof, hard enough to make the oars tremble on their pegs. Duncan's eyes lift from the stone. "What happens if you stay?" Mairi closes her fingers around her own reflection. "I become what I would have been," she says. "You're mortal now." "No." Her mouth goes dry around the word. "I am borrowed." His face tightens. "If I return before sunrise, I remain as I am. I watch. The lake opens again when 100 years have passed, if it opens at all." Duncan's voice is rough. "I'll be gone." "Yes." The word lands with no echo. His shoulders shift once, as if the word has struck him, but he stays standing. "If you don't return, the years find me." "How many?" Her fingers curl harder around the stone. The body keeps its own debt. "How many, Mairi?" Her name in his mouth makes the lantern flame pull long. 20 summers, she says. Duncan's eyes close. Not relief, not grief. Something more dangerous because it contains both. When he opens them, hope and fear sit plainly enough in his face to do harm. Mairi laughs once, softly, without joy. "You thought it would be worse. I thought it would be death. It may be. That isn't an answer. It is the only one I have." The boathouse creaks in the rain. Somewhere under the floorboards, water touches wood and withdraws. Duncan moves to the wall and takes down an old blanket. He shakes dust from it, crosses the narrow space, and drapes it around her, over the coat. His hands do not linger. Mairi catches his wrist before he can step back. The lantern flame gutters. His skin is warm beneath her wet fingers. Veins move under the place where she holds him, a quiet proof of life. She has watched blood pulse in throats, watched breath fog glass, watched hands age and scars fade pale. She has never interrupted any of it. Now his pulse beats against her thumb. Duncan does not move. "Mairi," he says, not warning, not question. "I am trying to know what is real." The truth comes out too plainly. It leaves her bare. His wrist turns slowly in her hand until his palm faces hers. He gives her time to pull away. When she does not, he closes his fingers around her hand. The warmth is no longer accidental. It is chosen. A sound rises in her chest. She traps it behind her teeth. Duncan's eyes drop to her mouth, only for a breath, long enough for the room to narrow to that one stolen glance. The lake outside goes still, not quieter, still. The rain continues, but the lake ceases answering it. No lap against stone, no breath of water against the door. Mairi hears the wrongness and stiffens. Duncan hears it too. The obsidian stone burns. She opens her hand. A pale crack runs through the black surface, thin as a hair, cutting across the reflected face inside it. Duncan lets go at once. Cold enters where his fingers had been. Mairi almost reaches for him again. The want is so simple it feels brutal. One step, one hand at the back of his neck. One kiss to take out of this night, even if nothing else can be kept. The stone pulses. "No," she whispers. Rain returns to the lake all at once. The sound rushes under the boathouse and up the walls. Duncan runs both hands over his face, then drops them. "Tell me what you remember." Mairi sits on the overturned boat because her knees have begun to tremble. Wet wood presses through the coat, through the blanket, grounding her. The stone rests in both her hands now. Its crack holds a thread of light that was not there before. "I was a girl," she says. A voice from the shore asked her to look into the lake. Cold followed. Her mother called her name from somewhere too far away. After that, I remember everything that happened above the surface and almost nothing that happened before. Duncan stays standing by the crate. His hands are fists at his sides. "The lake keeps what is given to it," she says. The lantern pops softly. Rain threads down the inner wall where a board has warped. Duncan's anger has nowhere to go. It changes shape in him, becomes something controlled and shaking. "You were alone." Mairi thinks of winters when ice clouded the surface and gave her only pale light. Yes, the word is not self-pity. It is a door opened and closed. Duncan crosses the boathouse then, not quickly. He crouches in front of her, leaving space between his knees and hers. "I used to think," he says, and stops. Mairi waits, his mouth twists. "No, I did not think. I knew, and then I spent the rest of the year making myself unknow it." The rain softens, as if listening. "When I was a child, I thought the lake liked me best. I would sit by the water angry, and it would settle. Later, Elspeth said the place felt watched, as if someone had taken us both into her keeping." Duncan's voice thins. "After she died, I came back because I could not bear the house, or people, or pity. I sat at the shore and thought if grief had a shape, it would be that water." He looks at her then. No reflected glass, no lake between them, nothing to soften the force of being seen. "I thought I was talking to myself," he says, "but I hoped I wasn't." Mary's chest aches. "I heard you," she says. "I know that now." I could not answer. I know that too. Their knees almost touch. The word almost has become a blade. It cuts every second into what is and what might be. Duncan reaches toward the stone, then stops with his hand open in the space above it. "May I?" Mairi places it in his palm. The stone looks different against his skin, less like a curse, more like something found on a shore and carried home in a pocket because the hand likes its weight. Inside the black surface, her reflected face lifts. Duncan's thumb brushes near the crack, careful not to cross it. "You are here. For now." His hand closes around the stone. "I won't ask you to stay." The words should comfort her. They do not. Mairi stands too fast. The blanket slides from her shoulders. "Why not?" Duncan rises with her, the stone still in his hand. "Because asking would make it about me." "It is about you." "No, it is." Her voice breaks the word open. "You are why I stepped out." The lantern flame leans hard toward her. Duncan goes still. "I do not know when watching became waiting," she says. "I only know that tonight, when you touched the stone, I could not remain under the water and call that living." His throat moves. Duncan sets the stone on the crate beside the lantern. Then he turns back to her. "I won't ask you to spend what remains of your life because I am lonely," he says. Mary's eyes burn. "But if you stay," he says very quietly, "I will make room for you in every morning I have." Mairi cannot speak. Speech would be too small anyway. His hand lifts, slow enough that she can refuse it in 3 different breaths. She does not. His fingers touch the edge of her wet hair, not even skin, and the tenderness of that restraint moves through her more fiercely than any claim could have done. A strand clings to his knuckle. He draws it away from her cheek. The room becomes the place where his hand ends and her breathing begins. Mairi leans forward. He does not meet her halfway until the last instant. Their mouths do not touch. A board cracks under the far wall. Water surges through. The lake comes in, black and fast, spreading across the boathouse floor. Duncan grabs the lantern. Mairi snatches the stone. The first cold sheet curls around the soles of his boots, then hers. For one terrifying breath, water covers both her feet. The pull is immediate. It enters through the borrowed boots, through skin, through bone. The lake does not drag like hands. It remembers her, and memory is stronger than force. Her body turns toward the door. Duncan catches her from behind, arms around the coat, boots braced on the slick boards. "Mairi." She cannot answer. The water climbs to her ankles. The reflection opens beneath her. She sees the underplace waiting, silver dark, endless quiet, the softened shape of everything she has known. No pain there. No breath tearing her chest. No sunrise debt, no body trembling because a man's arms are the only thing between her and forever. Her fingers begin to loosen around the stone. Duncan does not pull harder. He lowers his mouth near her ear, not touching. "Choose where your feet go. Not stay, not come back. Choose." The word cuts through the lake. Mairi slams one hand against the wall. Splinters enter her palm. Pain breaks the spell. She drags her right foot out of the water's deeper thread, then the left. Duncan moves with her, his arms steadying her until her strength finds itself. They reach the inner stairs that lead to the loft, where old nets are stored. Water spreads below, black under lantern light. Mairi grips the railing and looks back. The boathouse floor has become a piece of night. In it, her reflection stares up, face whole again, despite the cracked stone in her hand. Her fingers bleed around a splinter. She climbs. The loft smells of dust and rope. Duncan sets the lantern on a beam and tears a strip from his shirt without comment. His hands shake only once as he wraps her palm. Blood spots the cloth and darkens it. Mairi watches the red bloom. Her blood. The sight should frighten her. Instead, it roots her deeper than warmth did. The lake had no use for blood. Duncan ties the cloth. His knuckles brush her palm. This time she does not shake from being touched. She shakes because dawn is coming. The rain thins. A pale change enters the seams of the boathouse wall. Not light yet. The idea of light. Duncan looks toward it. Mairi does too. The hour before sunrise has a taste. Iron, cold ash, wet wood, endings. They descend when the water retreats. Outside, the world has been washed clean and left uncertain. Clouds sag over the hills, their undersides paling. The lake lies high along the shore, too full, too smooth, its surface dark as the stone in Mary's hand. Every step toward it is a step her body understands. Duncan walks beside her, not ahead, not behind. The cabin is a low shape in the dimness. Smoke has died in the chimney. Heather drips. Somewhere far off, a bird tests one note and falls quiet, as if ashamed to have begun too soon. At the water's edge, Mairi stops. Her reflection rises beneath the surface. It is uncreased, unspent, untouched by hunger, by smoke, by grief, by the rough cloth around her bleeding hand. It wears her face, as the lake has always kept it. Duncan says nothing. Mairi looks at him. Rain beads on his lashes. His hair is damp and untidy. Dawn has made him look older than lantern light did, and more alive. The lines at his eyes are not flaws in the face she knows. They are records, weather, laughter, sleeplessness. Years he had no choice but to live. The lake begins to brighten by almost nothing. "I do not know how to be good," Mairi says. Duncan looks at the water, then at her. Good may be too much to ask before breakfast. The laugh escapes her, small, broken, real. His mouth changes, not into a smile exactly, but into something that has remembered how. The lake reaches for her toes. Mairi steps into it. Cold closes over the boots. The reflection below lifts its hands. Duncan remains on the shore. His hands hang open at his sides. No command, no plea. The choice stays with her. Mairi wades until water covers both feet. The pull welcomes her. Her body loosens, pain dims. The splinter in her palm becomes distant. Breath grows less necessary. The lake opens under her like a door she has passed through too many times to fear. In the water, her reflection reaches up. Their fingers meet at the surface. For one breath, Mairi is half returned. Cold peace climbs her legs. The shore thins. Duncan becomes a man beyond glass, a beloved shape on the other side of never. She can watch him from here, watch him leave the shore, older each summer. Watch him fail to come 1 year. Watch strangers take the cabin. Watch the roof cave, the heather grow through the floor, the boathouse sink plank by plank into the reeds. She can remain young enough to bear all of it, and never touch any of it again. Dawn gathers behind the hills. "Mairi," Duncan says, only her name, not stay, not please, only the word that means she has a place in the air. Mairi looks back. He stands with the sun not yet risen behind him, rain-dark coat open at the throat, one hand closed around nothing because she still has the stone. He is not enough reason to live. No single person should be asked to carry that. But the world behind him is suddenly full of things she has not done. Salt on oats, smoke in her hair, a door that sticks, blood washed from cloth, morning cold on a face that belongs only to itself. A hand taken because she chooses it, not because drowning requires it. Mairi lifts the obsidian stone. Her reflection in it is cracked straight through. She presses the stone into the lake. The surface does not break. It hardens beneath her palm, slick and resistant as glass. The reflection below widens its eyes. The lake pulls once, hard enough to stagger her. Mairi pulls back harder. Her hand tears free, with the stone still in it. Then she steps out of the water. The first ray of sun touches the hill. The years arrive. They do not strike like lightning. They enter like weather through every unsealed place. Heat first, fierce under the skin, then ache, then a deep rearranging, as if her bones remember the shape they were owed and rush toward it. Mairi drops to her knees on the stones. Duncan moves, then stops himself one step away. She is grateful. She is furious. She is too busy becoming to be either. Her hair dries in a breath and changes under her hands. Not all of it. A wide silver streak burns from her temple through the black, bright as frost. Her skin tightens, then softens differently around her mouth, her eyes, her throat. Strength leaves one place and settles in another. The wild, weightless sharpness of the lake goes out of her limbs. A mortal heaviness replaces it. 20 summers find her. Mairi bends over the stones and breathes like an animal. Duncan kneels in front of her. His hands hover, shaking. "May I?" She almost cannot nod. She does. He gathers her against him, not as if she is fragile, as if she is here. Mairi grips the front of his coat with her bandaged hand, and the other one, both. The fabric is wet. His heart beats beneath it, steady and terrified. Her own heart answers, no longer borrowed, no longer remembered by water, but hers. The sun clears the hill. Light crosses the lake. Mairi waits for the cry of it inside her, the hook, the summons, the punishment she has not yet understood. Nothing comes. Duncan draws back enough to see her face. His eyes move over the changes. The silver, the fine lines that were not there, the new hollow's grief and time have carved into a face that has earned neither slowly. For one raw breath, fear touches her, not fear of age, fear of his seeing age as loss rather than arrival. Duncan lifts his hand. He touches the silver at her temple with the backs of his fingers. A sound leaves him, too low to be speech. Mary's eyes sting. "Do I frighten you?" "Yes," he says. The honesty goes through her. Then his hand curves, carefully, against her cheek. "Because you stayed." She closes her eyes. His thumb moves once. No more than that. The whole world. When she opens her eyes, he is looking at her mouth again. This time neither of them mistakes the wanting for anything simple. Mairi leans in first. Their kiss is not long. It is not gentle enough to be harmless. His mouth is warm, rain cold at the edges. and the breath he loses against her lips seems to enter her in another form. The cracked stone grows hot between her fingers. Somewhere behind them, the lake gives one soft sound against the shore and falls quiet. They part because breath matters now. Mairi laughs at that, silently, forehead against his. Duncan's hand remains at her cheek. "What do you need?" She looks past him to the cabin, the chimney, the pale smoke that is no longer rising. The stubborn door waiting for a shoulder or a kind word. "Breakfast," she says. His laugh breaks on the first breath and steadies on the second. Mairi looks down at the obsidian stone. For the first time, it holds no young trapped face. Its black surface shows a woman kneeling on a wet shore at sunrise. Silver in her hair, blood on one hand, a man beside her with rain in the lines of his face. Not a perfect reflection, not preserved. The image trembles because her hand trembles. She closes her fingers around it. Duncan stands and offers his hand. Mairi takes it.